All right. Good evening to all of you, and greetings and blessings of the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha to the all venerable monks and nuns, and to our friends who are joining us for Facebook and YouTube live. So it seems today uh, most venerable monks and nuns either occupied with their own weekly Saturday programs, but I'm very happy to see some venerables joining us for this bi-weekly Sutra discussion. So let us begin the discussion by paying respect to the Buddha by reciting Namo Tassa 3 times together. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. I pay my respect and homage to him, the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened Buddha. Okay, dear friends, first of all, I would like to introduce all our venerable monks and nuns who are joining this bi-weekly sutra discussion. Venerable Yuttadhammo Bhikkhu joining us from Stony Creek, Ontario, Canada. He used to be in Niagara Falls. He changed his background. And we have a new face, Venerable Samten Chordan from Ottawa, Canada. So we would like to welcome you, Venerable Samten, for this unique discussion. And then we have Venerable Bhante Jinananda from Ottawa. He's the family of faith. And then we have Venerable Vimala Bhikkhuni from Chicago suburb, Woodstock. And we have Venerable Bhante Vansananda joining us from Seattle, USA. And we have Venerable Bhante Sunita joining us from Ottawa, Canada. And then we have Venerable Bhante Kusala. Actually, he's here with us. He's joining us from another room. These days, he's staying with us. And we have Mataji, Reverend Kema, joining us all the way from Mumbai, India. It's early morning for you. And today I see a very beautiful virtual background. It seems like you're joining us from a lake.
The lake in
So
Missouri.
it's a great pleasure and joy to have all of you for this bi-weekly sutra discussion. And other venerable monks and nuns, maybe they are busy, maybe they are going to join us later. But today we are very happy to have at least 9 venerable monks and nuns. And last time, we discussed about Buddhism and mental health. It was the message was well received. The words of wisdom were greatly appreciated by the viewers, and we have probably have seen the comments made by some friends, and they greatly appreciated your wisdom, and it was encouraging. It was shedding a lot of light, and it gave a lot of hope to them. And there was a huge interest in this topic, and some viewers wanted us to have the second session. And as a result of that, today we are going to have this discussion on the same theme, but slightly different. It's like Buddhism and mental health. We are asking a question of what could cause mental health issues. As in, we all know, maybe we all have some ideas about this, what could be causing the mental health issues, the struggles, problems. And but there is well, I think as we continue discussing about this, we also can bring the words of Buddha to explain or to answer this question, and what exactly Buddha said about this mental health issue and what causes. But not today's mental health issues could be various. It's not just one thing. Sometimes people could say, okay, this is the thing that caused the problem. But as we all know, in Buddhism, Buddhist philosophy, the Buddha talks about not just one cause. There could be multiple causes. Na eka hetu, bahu hetu, multiple causes. So behind any mental health issues and problems, there could be many causes. So, of course, today we are not just invited, we have not assigned to a particular venerable monk and nun to talk about this, but anyone who would like to talk about this, you could raise your hand, and then, you can speak up. As monks and nuns, I know you have been dealing with this. You have been seeing people, teaching people. You have been doing counseling, and including myself. Even these days, I'm seeing people, at least 2 or 3 people every day. So you have a lot of stories. Maybe you could shed some light. And so I would like to invite all the venerable monks and nuns to say something about it. What could cause mental health issues? Anyone? Meantime, I can enjoy my double. Yeah, Mataji, I see you're raising your hand.
I kick it off. I start. Okay. Thank you, Venerables. One of the issues in mental health is that mental health is part of health. The biggest taboo, the talking about mental health, is the largest problem for the people because the head is disconnected from the body. In the 1970s, when we practiced calisthenics exercises, we practiced from here down. Now we're practicing the whole body better, but primarily for the human being, it's a normal thing. Everyone is susceptible to mental health issues. So primarily, it's the past. It's always the past that kicks this off. Right now, we could say the largest problem we're all facing with mental health is COVID-19. 1.5 years of sudden lockdown in the world. Isolation, almost as if being put in prison in a war. Losing a year of school, the death of friends and family, and immense grief and panic about losing your job, then your car, then your house, ability to support your family and shelter and food and medicine. All of a sudden, just out of the blue, bang, it's not your fault, it's here. And all levels of depression are kicked off by a lack of balance and the lack of exercise, lack of sleep. So the first question, what could cause these mental illnesses is like an imbalance of understanding the connection between mind and body. And I remember when I was at Siba, when I first met Bhante Kusala, in Palakeli, when I was there were discussions by the head of the Buddhist department he was doing a PowerPoint for the Buddhist conference in a large Buddhist conference. And I was helping him with the PowerPoint, and there were 30 or 40 suttas that existed. And his was psychology and Buddhology, and teaching that at the university there. And all of these suttas, and it was fun to discover there's all these suttas that many of us maybe never have dug into. I have that list someplace. I could give it to all of you maybe. And so the most important thing that kicks this off is the sudden trauma of something. For the average person, the sudden trauma, for instance, depression usually kicks off at 18 years old, 18, 19 years old. But the shock that I've been faced with people's children, what do we do? How do we help them? How do we stabilize them? Is an imbalance of mind, sudden imbalance of everything in your life. So everybody is susceptible to this danger at this time, which we looked at before as an isolated group of people maybe who are weaker or something like that, is not the case and stretches across all demographics. And now we are pushed with this huge thing facing us. And Buddhism is very equipped for this. So I'm only going to go to the one question because you asked this first. Yeah.
Yeah. We will be actually, this is an open discussion. Anyone can say something about this. So any other venerable who would like to shed some light? Venerable Vimala Bhikkhuni, you have to unmute yourself, Venerable.
What I see a lot, I see people becoming really mentally unhealthy based on grief, especially parents losing a child for any reason, but particularly if the child is older and has died from drug addiction or a drug overdose. And I've seen people who are really on a good path spiritually, and the loss of that child has been. I have people who are unable to come back. They're unable to. I haven't been able to pull some back. They feel lost. And the other is also the post-traumatic stress, which might be from. There's one person I'm working with who only recently found out that he had been adopted, and he's probably close to 40 years old, and so that's been such a big revelation in his life, and really has caused him to look at everything in his life, and he's really working with it. But it really threw him. He said he had to question everything about his life. Well, those are two things I've seen.
Okay.
A lot of, just that childhood, a childhood with abuse or neglect. Mm-hmm. And so very little children who are pretty much running their own lives or have an older sibling, and those, when they grow up and they're teenagers, they get into the juvenile detention or corrections world pretty quickly and end up with really severe personality disorders and depression at very young ages, 13, 14 and up. So I've seen a lot of that. Mm-hmm. Really serious mental health issues.
Okay, so these are the modern mental health issues, right?
Yes.
Okay. And any other venerables? What could you say about this?
Yes, Bante.
Yeah, yeah, Bante Vansananda.
Yes. So, my respect to all venerables, monks and nuns. Um, in this matter, I'd like to bring something because when we talk about the mental health, it is good to understand the three levels of mental situation. There's the normal, abnormal, and supernormal.
Okay.
When we think about that, according to the personalities who practices Buddhist path, then when they become Arahant or Buddha, they don't have that maybe psychological issues. And then the other characters, non-returner, once returner, stream winner, those the followers also have some kind of psychological issues, but not many. But many problems have who is not practicing Dhamma, who doesn't have good knowledge, lack of knowledge. Because of that, they cannot understand exactly they are suffering from some illnesses. So I think that is good to discuss furthermore when we think about Putujjana, it's normally ordinary people. It is good to understand them. When we look at the ordinary people, then they have a severe problem with the mental issues. They become they have the abnormal mental situation. I think so.
Okay, so these are pretty interesting terms, you know, abnormal situation, normal situation, and the supernormal situations. I think we need to discuss these terms. Now I see two hands raised. Bante Jinananda from Ottawa.
Bante Kusala, do you want to go first before me? Okay, so I cannot hear you. Your mic is mute.
Oh, please go. I thought I unmuted. Please go ahead, Bante. I like to listen to what you have to say, and then I will jump in.
Yeah, it's interesting to discuss about the mental issues or illnesses that people experience due to COVID-related incidents, and that is good to raise and find solutions. Yesterday, one of my close friends called me, and he has a lot of issues. Let me explain the issue first and understand what exactly he thinks about life due to the COVID situation. As you know, we have been in this situation for 1.5 years nearly. Depending on the area you live, it could be different, but basically it's 1.5 years. So this person is around 80 years old. If there was no COVID restriction, he would have gone out with his wife and drink coffee and Tim Horton like Bante Sandapala do now. And so in the winter time, he used to travel to the hot area like Florida, Texas, and during the summer and also in the fall and in the spring, he would definitely enjoy the gardening. But due to the fact that he was in the house for certain months, his ability to go out even for gardening has been losing. Now earlier his problem was about not having that opportunity to go out and enjoy his life. And then when the situation, especially the winter, is gone, he is now having some physical issues like allergies, because he didn't do gardening last year because of the COVID situation, and some reasons made him to do that. So now part of the problem is his mental issues that I may not be able to do this. So his wife confirmed me that Bante, he can do it, but his mentality doesn't allow him to do and go and do this. Now, the second part of the issue that his body now is not listening to natural things. So now it's a whole about mental issues and frustration, disappointment. And I was listening to him for about maybe 15 minutes. So as a Buddhist monk who always counsel people to be kind, to practice generosity, to meditate for peace and happiness, I think that this kind of practices could give long-term results. As you know, you cannot get good results of meditation just by 1 day or 2 day. So first of all, I thought with this case that we should make him confident about his life. So I brought up an idea that I should talk to him and give him some space to release his problem. So basically, when we consider the COVID situation like that, that we can listen to those people as a part of the solution. So at the end of the 15 minutes discussion with so much interest, I show him that I am interested to listen to his. Now he's happy because someone outside of his family is listening to him, which is a good sign for him to release his pressure. And then I was talking about how good you were with so many good activities. When I did, he became a part of it. When somebody did good activities, he genuinely helped. So think about those things. And then he's now happy. His mind has been taken into a state where the positivity can be developed. Positivity can be shine up. So first thing, we have to listen to those people in order for them to come out of the problem into a certain extent. Then find some situation in his problem and tell him the problem to think about the confidence. Then I slowly add that, why don't you go out in front of the house and stay under the tree for some time, even though you cannot go to some plants because of the allergies. Just look at them, because you have been doing gardening for several years, actually more than 2 decades, so that you can bring those memories. So he has started doing that. Then he said that Bhante is different. Now I'm a little bit okay. So I didn't bring out much of the Buddha's teaching out to this situation, but just listen to him as a Kalyana Mitra, good friend. And I help him found out some solutions to understand his own problem. And I gave only one tip for him to enjoy the nature. Now he's recovering. So I think slowly, step by step, we can refill his mind, we can recover his problem, because some mental problems are not that deep, only some intimacy we can share with them just to actually take them to the normal life. So that is my recent experience of mental health issue. I have so many things to share, so let's see how others contribute to this.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think that's also the very reason why I have been doing this program. I call it mindful conversation under the tree with the urban Buddhist monk. And outside the temple, we sit under the tree and we have pleasant conversations. So I can connect to what you said. But Bhante Kusala, you raised your hand. I'm pretty sure you also do counseling, and I have listened to, it's not that I'm listening to you intentionally, but I hear what you're saying to some people. So what's your take on this?
Bhante, just this afternoon, I have introduced your mindfulness under the tree program to a young man who has never been to a Buddhist temple. He came to our parking lot here, but we couldn't welcome him because we are getting prepared for this program. He's going to perhaps show up next Wednesday when you do the garden meditation in the open. So Bhante Jinananda mentioned a very nice story explaining his real sort of like encounter with this person that he was speaking about. And little earlier, Bhante Vansanand added some psychological terms, and even before Venerable Vimala Bhikkhuni spoke about grief, and Venerable Kema also started with some sort of like real life, issues that we are facing in North America and also in the world. And here, because Bhante Sarnapala has already shared some Buddha's teachings in the email that you circulated among us from the Roga Sutta, I thought maybe we can kind of incorporate that as we go along in this discussion. That it is so intriguing in that sutta, the Buddha says, makes a strong statement in that he says, it's very hard to find any sentient beings in the world who can claim to be free of mental illness, even for a moment. It's a strong statement. Apart from those who have ended the defilements. So unless you have become an arahant, the Buddha is saying that you are mentally, he may not find a person who is not completely sort of healthy in mind unless you are enlightened. So that is really like a strong statement made by Buddha. And then he goes on to, say about, because this is kind of reflecting on the question you asked earlier, the root causes of mental illnesses, according to the Buddha. One of the root causes is having, this is called mahicchata, having many wishes, that you are expecting too much from you or from somebody else, or from any situation. These expectations, lead to unsatisfactoriness. So this is called mahicchata. Then we have vighatava, being frustrated all the time, with noises, and every little thing frustrates the person. And that is part of, one of the root causes the Buddha, basically root causes go to like lust, hatred, and delusion. But these are like some sort of illnesses that the Buddha identifies that people have mentally when they live in the world. And the other one that I find here is not being content, asantutti, not being content. And this, goes to the previous discussion we had on mental illness, in which I think Bhante Pemaratana presented about King Kosala, and the Buddha was teaching King Kosala, Pasenadi Kosala, on cutting off meals. In that, in the end, the Buddha said, Buddha mentioned about four ways one can be healthy. The Buddha said, physical health is important, and then social health is important, mental health is important, as well as spiritual health is important, as we find in the Arogya Paramalabha Santutti Paramandanam Vissasa Paramanyati Nibbanam Paramansukam, in that. So we can kind of find different teachings of the Buddha that speak about this subject. And at last, I would say, as I have also been a chaplain, and when Venerable Vimala Bhikkhuni mentioned about grief, and I often say to patients, not to patients, sometimes when there has been a death and it is untimely, and their relatives come to the hospital, and I normally say, grief is the measure of your love towards this person. So I kind of make a connection with them that way, because you have to begin from what they know before we talk about any of the other things. So I think that will be it for now, and I think maybe Venerables now have more ideas added to their mind.
That's interesting. We intentionally circulated that sutra actually, Roga Sutta, and we have to always connect to that. And I will be asking a very important question later on after listening to some of the venerables. And we have actually 4 venerables raised hands. Venerable Yuttadhammo, you raised your hand. I saw it, but
yeah, I felt kind of.
And other venerables, you can just hang on, okay? Just keep your thought. And meantime,
so many hands, I wanted to let someone else go first.
Okay, then Venerable Samten from Ottawa. Please unmute yourself. And meantime, those viewers, if you have any questions regarding today's discussion, please feel free to ask questions. My assistant is monitoring the questions if you have any. Okay, I will be asking that question. Let's let the Venerable Samten speak up.
Thanks so much to all of you. And one of the things that I'm hearing really so clearly with my heart is that people are answering the question not only of what causes the suffering, but what can relieve it. And what I'm hearing is that people are relieving suffering through the active compassion of listening and responding to people from where they are, with like respect and compassion for where they are. So that's beautiful for me to hear. I'm going to just make a couple of comments, really simple ones about the cause. And I was thinking that, we hear a lot right now about people suffering from all the changes related to COVID and of loss related to COVID and of the anxious pace of life, and as well as all of the many things that would ordinarily be heard of. And I was thinking really simply, we could consider that Buddha taught that everything is impermanent, and this suffering comes from not accepting that reality. So when we expect things to be permanent, people to be permanent, the world to be unchanging, things to be consistent, then of course, when things are as tumultuous as they are right now, people suffer deeply. And the other thing, which some of you have touched on, is Buddhist teachings about that samsara is unsatisfactory. And when we expect life to be satisfactory and all our wishes to be met and things to go well, of course we will suffer, because there's that, and in addition to the suffering of not doing things, what I so often hear from people is some sense of culpability, of shame, that somehow they believe if they got it all together, they wouldn't be suffering, that they could live their life in such a way that things will always go smoothly and they will not be troubled. And so this again, out of touch with how things really are, brings an additional burden of, I've somehow failed, because if I did it right, everything would be fine in my life as I maybe imagine things are fine in other people's lives. And again, I think as the other monastics have been speaking of, just by listening to people and hearing that, responding to them with respect and openness, people then can start to come into wisdom that would allow them to more accept change in their life and more accept the vicissitudes of life. that it's fighting against the vicissitudes of life and imagining that it could be otherwise, that causes a lot of mental distress and physical distress as well. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Venerable Santan, for shedding more light and adding more wisdom into this discussion. And of course, every word that you're saying, you're sharing with us to our friends, it's giving them a lot of hope, you know, bringing a lot of light. And I'm very positive about that. And now I would like to invite Bante Verapanyo. I know you're on the road. There's a possibility of losing internet connection. Before we lose you, I know you raised your hand. Would you like to add something into this discussion?
Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the venerables sharing their wisdom. It really is a treasure. What I wanted to offer is that I think that Sangha is something that's really workable way to deal with mental health issues. And I think that a lot of people who are suffering don't have Sangha, they don't have community. And I think as Buddhist monastics, we're really in a unique position, not only to offer the Buddha as in meditation, the teachings, but also to facilitate intimate, contemplative, compassionate community. And I know for me in my path of dealing with my mental suffering through Buddhism, through meditation, Sangha has been such an integral part in that healing process. So I think that bringing to mind how we can cultivate not only one-on-one relationships, but also a community of practitioners supporting one another is really important. The rain's starting to come, so thank you
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Bante Verapanyo. I know you're a wandering monk. You don't stay in one place, maybe kind of traveling monk. Despite that, you have shown a great interest in this discussion. And of course, I kindly invited you to join. And I'm very happy to see that you're joining us every time we have this discussion. And Bante Sunita, I know last time you told a story that was touched by, you know, and people were able to relate that to you. I'm pretty sure today you're going to tell us another story, maybe.
Thank you, Bhante Sarvapal, and my humble respect to all venerable bhikkhus and bhikkhunis who are knowledgeable and wise more than me. Actually, when we talk about the causes of the mental issues and conditions, difficulties, we should not we should not forget about the sutta named Vatta Sutta, simile of clothes, in Majjhima Nikaya. So there are in that sutta, Buddha explained there are 16 causes, and we would say, I would say it's corruption, causes for corruption. And those are actually, those have very roots, as Bhante Kusala said. There are, as we all know, there are 3 root causes: desire, hatred, and ignorance. So what we have been talking about, all the social factors, economical and cultural factors, right? Those are the factors we have been talking about. But we should not forget to go deeper. Why those various kind of mental issues and difficulties arise time to time, no matter where we live, no matter in which culture we live. So there are based on those root causes, any time, any moment, any given moment, those various mental issues can arise, because we have been letting these root causes develop in us from many lifetimes in this cycle of samsara. So then they become root causes, then they become asava, kilesa. So those are the real causes of mental issues.
Okay.
So until we, so as long as let them be in us, and based on those things, and any various kind of mental issues can arise in us. Social factors, economical, and various other physical and other factors can trigger that root causes, right? Letting us suffer. So until we eradicate completely, we cannot be away from these mental factors. That is, as the Buddha explained, as we have understood. So we should actually, this is a mental problem and mental health and Buddhism. So if we can go deeper, and if we can go deeper and deeper to find what are the root causes in Buddhism, Buddha explained, and how we can relate to this, present society, today's society, society's mental issues. If we can, use those things and those teachings to understand current mental issues, we can support one another, and we can support all our citizens. So that is my thoughts.
No, this is very interesting, Bhante Sunita, what you said. I wish all modern psychologists and neuroscientists could hear this. You made pretty strong statements with respect to this mental health issues and mental health, and until we eradicate all these defilements, there's no way that you can enjoy the real mental health. I think so. This is a deep wisdom, and they should do more research into this. But we will get back to that. Bhante Yuttadhammo from Stony Creek, for the second time, you raised your hand. So this time you had to speak up. You have to unmute yourself.
I'm gonna rush in this time, boldly. I just had a couple of things to say that are on my mind about the causes of mental illness. The first is that, well, I guess as a preamble, just to remind that I think what was already stated, that the causes are complicated. You can't say X causes Y in this case. And something to remember about Buddhism is that it is complicated. There are 24 paccaya, right? There are many different kinds of cause things. There's well, I'm not going to go into the detail, but it's not just a simple case of this, then that. And one example of this is in regards to the physical causes of mental illness. I think it's important to reflect upon the fact that physical causes of mental illness are only, I don't know what the word would be, but adjunct or catalysts. You can never be caused mental illness by the physical, right? And that's what was mentioned, that for an arahant, they don't experience mental illness, no matter what the physical. We have, a very famous example in the Satipatthana Sutta talking about the difference between the physical and mental. In the commentary is Tissa, this monk who was confronted by bandits who were going to kill him, and so he broke both of his legs. He said, "Come back, I'm meditating," and he was so intent on a pure way with his mind that the physical didn't bother him at all. And they said, "How can we be sure you're not going to run away?" So he broke both of his legs, and because of that became enlightened. because of the physical pain, something that normally we associate with great mental suffering. I have an example. This happened. I got to see this for myself when I was in California, dealing with a cancer patient, and it was someone who had never practiced meditation before. She had no experience with mindfulness or anything. It was a sister of one of my students, and I came to see her, and I explained to her how to be mindful. She had liver cancer, stage 4. She was dying. She was lying on her bed, and she was just at the end of her life. And I started explaining to her how to be mindful. First, we did some chanting, but after the chanting, I explained to her, watching her stomach rising and falling. And she started, but then she said, it's too painful. She said, I can't. And she was so much suffering because of it. And I talked her through it, and she said, I need my pain medication. I just can't stand this. It's just mentally incapable of it. And I explained to her, I said, okay, we can take the medication, no problem. But first try and be mindful of the pain. I said, say to yourself, pain, pain, just trying to see the pain as just pain. She was tortured, and she tried it. And she tried it, and she did it for maybe 1 minute, and she fell asleep. And she didn't take any pain medication. Her mind was able to let go, you see. Talking about COVID, one other thing in regards to the physical, I just was reminded of of a story relating to the idea of incarceration, particularly, right? We feel like we've been in jail. My family, we have family conversations, and they're all talking about how it's affected them. And I said, well, I don't leave my room anyway, so it hasn't affected me much. But I was reminded, some of the venerables were talking about the idea of incarceration. There's a famous story, a very famous monk in Thailand during the communist scare, the time when there was a great disturbance, and based on a lot of jealousy of this monk, who was a very, very important monk in Thai history. He brought Abhidhamma study to Thailand, and he started the monastic university. And out of jealousy as the big cause, he was accused of communism and incarcerated for 7 years. He spent 7 years in jail. They took away his monk's robes. They made him wear white, and he was in a cell for 7 years. During that time, he translated the Visuddhimagga into Thai, and we now have that because he was incarcerated. At the end of the 7 years, he was freed, finally, and exonerated. And he was asked how it was, and he said, oh, it was great. I didn't have any of the concerns of being a head monk. He was the Nayaka of the Jalwat of a very important monastery. I didn't have anyone bothering me. Someone was guarding my door. They brought me food every day. He said it was great. To me, an example of how our circumstance, absolutely, I don't mean to trivialize people's anguish, but rather to contextualize it and to sort of clarify the cause as being not just the physical, but our perception of the physical. Just quickly, if I have a little more time, regards to the mental, I think it's interesting how we differentiate between ordinary mental health issues and what we call, not we, but in society, what we call mental illness, right? Because in the Roga Sutta, is it, that where the Buddha says everyone has mental illness, you can't go without it for even a moment. And I think a lot of doctors would disagree with that, or people tend to disagree with that, because they classify their symptoms as depressed. If you're depressed, or you're clinically depressed, right? If you have mental illness, or you just get depressed sometimes. And I think in Buddhism, pointed out by the Roga Sutta, we don't actually make that distinction, but it's interesting to note why it becomes something that would be recognized by the world as a mental illness. And one important factor that seems pertinent to discuss is the idea of the habit forming nature of karma, that when we like something, it isn't a static thing where you say, okay, today I like it, but that's okay, tomorrow I'll give it up, right? Liking it today makes you want it more and more tomorrow. And indulging it doesn't keep it at a static level where I indulge it, okay, so I like it, okay, so I indulge. Every time you indulge, you like it more. The same with anger. For this person who had cancer, in the beginning, the pain may have been tolerable, but as you don't tolerate, you take medication for the pain, it gets worse. When you have headaches and you take pain medication, the next time you have a headache, it's less tolerable. And we see this, I give a couple of examples, one of Patachara that was mentioned last discussion. If you remember, Patachara was confronted with great stress, but bore through it. She lost her husband, she lost her husband, and she carried on. And she was distraught, but she was not crazy, right? She lost both her children. She was incredibly distraught beyond what any of us could even probably imagine. But she carried on. She was coherent. She was mindful until finally it snapped, It got too much. And it kind of, you can see that it built and it built. And each one of those individual instances wasn't enough to drive her crazy. But when it builds up and builds up, it gets to the point where you can no longer control it. You can no longer manage it, which I think is interesting in a Buddhist sense, in terms of when we practice mindfulness, our immediate goal is not to turn off the problem, but to recognize that it's out of our control and to rather be mindful of it. A huge part of mindfulness is being able to face rather than fix our problems, to be able to change the direction we're going in rather than stop going in that direction, to change our inclination and allow the change to come by not feeding it, by not encouraging the habit. I won't go anymore. That's all for me.
No, thank you. This is interesting, what you said. And I think even I had that feeling too when somebody said, so we are not, we are mentally ill all the time, or we are not free from it. And modern people may not agree with that, but I think when we deeply or impartially look into this, examine this, I think there could be some truth in it, not just some truth. I think there is a truth in it, but we have to examine this. Bhante Jinananda, you raised your hand.
Yeah, it's I think more than 15 minutes ago, due to listening to this wonderful conversation, my train of thoughts, what I wanted to say changed dramatically. Anyway, what Venerable monk who disappeared now, I think he's Varapanyu. He mentioned,
Varapanyu.
That seeing the monks would be a good solution for many people to starting solving their problems. It is wonderful to hear from that Venerable, because Ramananancha Dasanang, as mentioned in Mangala Sutta, we seen the monks who are able to help you with some tips of mental health would be a good thing. So even this discussion, which provide facilities for different monks from different directions, make you very comfortable to listen to various steps of mental health and a progressive step for peace and happiness. So the reason why I emphasize this fact is that when Bhante Ji from West Virginia told me one day that one lady came to a retreat not knowing about anything about monks and Buddhist meditation. So when this lady visited the monastery, the one retreat was going on, and they were in walking meditation. Sometimes that walking meditation is done in a rhythmic way, walking slowly, paying attention to each step. So this lady, when she entered the monastery, saw these people do walking meditation in that slow mood. So she thought that this would be a mental hospital, because people are not normal. So they had been walking very slowly, looking at the feet and maybe a couple of feet ahead. So then he went to the monk, not the Banteji, and asked whether I have come to the right place, because I saw some people were not normal. Then the monk laughed at and said that you are in the right place. Do you want to talk to Banteji? Then she went to talk to Banteji, and Banteji was sarcastically smiling and talking about various things. And they were able to manage to provide her room for a couple of days. And she came to know about the four foundation of mindfulness, where, as Yuttadhammo mentioned, that the right and perfect mental health in Buddhism is talked about. And in her story later on, she said that that would be the most interesting thing she found in her life to cope with mental issues she had been having for several years. And she was able to learn how to understand her body and its way of flow, and then how mind could engage with in physical activities. So she, one after the other, she had some retreats with, all these meditation aspect, and she learned how to deal with the mind. So I think Buddha's clear recommendation is found in Satipatthana Sutta in Digha Nikaya and Majjhima Nikaya and Samyutta Nikaya and elsewhere in Tripitaka in Theravada Buddhism, that mental purity is found by anyone who become mindful about the body and feeling, emotions, and also because making the environment would be a good solutions to deal with the mental issues we are having. At the same time, we have to look into understand what exactly we are. In Gelanya Sutta, in Samyutta Nikaya, Buddha talks about it. Gelanya is a Pali word for Gilan, right? So Buddha visited that hospital in the monastery where sick monks are admitted to, and he was talking about the Satipatthana. Buddha said that I know that you are sick physically and mentally now, and physical pain has given you so much distress because you cannot meditate and you are hurried to attain enlightenment. But what exactly you need to do now is to meditate on the sick bed about the pain, about the nature you are having now. So Buddha talks about the kaya anupassana in the first place, that this is the very thing you need to do. In a simple word, actually, we do not want to go anywhere else just to find peace and happiness. Just look at the body. Just look at how your body is constructed. So that's what Buddha talks about in Kaya Anupassana. Atapi sampajano satima vinay loke. With spiritual energy and interest, look at your body so that you see how your body is made by, so that you are not going to create so much expectations on you in your mind about things you need, about things you are dealing with. At the same time, you are not going to worry about, because your body is not yours. Your nobody, and it doesn't belong to anyone else, but it is a kind of step by step progressive progress. It happens in the body. So that I think if I elaborate on Gelanya Sutta, we can find a lot of interesting things. But simply Buddha asked those sick monks, physically and mentally sick monks, to think about the body on the basis of Satipatthana. And at the end of the discourse, those monks were so happy, because Buddha visited them. At the same time, they listened to something direct, something true about their physical body and mind. In that case, we can, Bante, take the example that if we go to see a sick person or a mentally ill person, we can slowly begin talking about their own problems, and be compassionate like the Buddha, and then talk about the way they could overcome suffering at that moment, and then find some solutions for them to overcome it. So I think there are so many other ways that we can work out, but talking about the problem directly and giving some tips of overcoming them would be key for them to surmount their problems. So that's what I just
Yeah.
wanted to
No,
share.
that's okay. Bhante Jinaranda, and I think we all understand what is this all about. Now, my simple question to you and also to all of the venerables. Let's say someone is who is deeply mentally disturbed, okay, and whatever we are saying, okay, observe the body, observe this. Now, what if they are not understanding it? What could be the simple activities for those who are severely mentally suffering?
Do I go first?
Yeah, okay. Give us one or two simple.
Yeah, I think if I have that situation, I would definitely be pleasant and mindful of the situation and try to be friendly with the particular person. That is what Venerable Sariputta and also the Buddha and other greatest monks did when they met sick people. So basically, be positive, be smiley, and your whole nature would be calm and peaceful, so that person would find refuge on you, and the confidence he has been developing that this person is really compassionate would be really good. I have an experience about that. 3.5 years ago, one of the Muslims family called me, and actually they called me from the Ottawa hospital. Actually, that was before when Venerable Vijita started his chaplainship. Then I went there. They brief about the problems. On their only child was sick, and they did not know anything about Buddhism. But one of their friends from Burma had said that there is a temple at the Heron Road. If you could call, and they would definitely come. So that's how this happened to me. So I went there, and these parents were so upset because the only child is in the ICU, facing with life-threatening dangers. Then I was doing. I was talking to them about how beautiful the child is, and also you, and why don't you think about your God and good things that you have been doing. And in my part, I can do some chanting, but at the same time, before that, you have to think about this and that. So I was talking about how beautiful the child was when he was not having this issue, and now these people were so comfortable with me, and they not only came out of that immediate suffering, but they of course talk about meditation. Now I could, before I left the place, I could have done some loving kindness meditation, which is about the positivity about the child, and I asked them to imagine that you overcome the problem and go home and play with the child. So that was not true actually, but at the same but I was managed to make the parents happy for the moment, and I asked them to give some spiritual energy for the child being good. So that was my one of the greatest experience I have. So Bhante Sarnapala, so I can say that we should be happy, we should be calm and peaceful, and talk with beautiful words, and feel them that we have a lot of essence in the Dhamma, in the name of peace and whatever words, so that they would definitely refuse to us. So these are some of the things that we can do immediately.
Yeah, so thank you. And of course, I can tell some stories. Maybe later on, if no venerable has anything to say, then I will tell my own stories. But I see some hands raised. Venerable Santan.
Yes,
Simple.
I understood your last question is maybe referring a bit to actually those extreme circumstances where people are really out of touch with reality in a not an ordinary way. All of us are out of touch, but in a more extreme way. And when I'm working with people, sometimes who have either what we would call serious mental illness, or sometimes in the case of severe trauma, where someone absolutely is losing touch with reality. And this is a time when maybe being kind isn't even perceived by them because they're so far out of touch. And I've just mentioned this as something that is always helpful to me in those circumstances, then mindfulness of the senses, so that I could just simply say to the person, what can you feel with your hand right now? Can you feel the arm of the chair that your hand is sitting on? What can you feel when if your hands are together on your lap? Can you hear my voice? What is the sound, other sounds that you can hear in the room right now? What can you see right now? What colors can you see? But mostly the one I would start with is always the physical sensation. So once the person can become in touch, that they can feel the arm of the chair, it's a very, I would say, kind of gross form of mindfulness, but they're then in touch with reality. And then we can go from there to proceeding toward the kinds of things that Venerable was speaking of, in terms of to be in touch with their own goodness, or to be in touch with the some heart quality. But I would begin, if someone's really lost touch with reality, of grounding them back into their body, so that they can be present enough to feel maybe love of other people in the room or my own. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, thank you so much. I think that works a lot. I think I have tried that with some people. First we need to help them get back to feel the reality in the present moment, right? So whatever it is, so that gives them hope. I think what we need to do is to let them see, they get the glimpse of light. They are in the complete darkness. So I know Bhante Kamalasri is joining us. Bhante Kamalasri, do you have anything to share with us today, or tell a story about the mental health and what could cause the mental health issues? Or if you have some simple applications, the practices, please share with us.
Actually, I wanted to listen to everybody. That is why I was silent. But when we are in sick, there is a true trouble. The one is physical. The second one is mental, means Chetasika Roga. What is the Chetasika Roga there is Patiga. Because it is because of pains, physical pains, come Patiga. Then for the physical reasons, physical causes, we need a doctor, and that is duty of the doctors. But then we have to focus to just only the Chetasika Roga, or mental situation, the Patiga. If we can remove or erase from Patiga from our mind and keep calm and peaceful mentality, then there is no any mentally problem with that. We can give up the physical body, and we can give the responsibility for the physicians. Then all of the sick person can be happy and peace.
Now, Bhante, what is this word that we use? Patiga? Is it Pali?
Yeah,
word?
patiga.
That is ill will, like anger. Ill will.
Yeah. Ill will. Yeah, it is. I like to say it is ill will.
So that means when somebody is having mental health issues, so that person has kind of this patiga, ill will towards himself or herself.
Aversion, I think. Patiga is just aversion.
Aversion, okay.
Yeah, aversion.
Towards something. It doesn't have to be a person.
Okay.
It's a Chetasika.
So now this is a pretty interesting point. like what Bhante Kamalsuri is saying, he used a word, very interesting word. That's why I became very interested in this. Patiga, the aversion. So that means someone who is going through so much, that person has aversion. Is that true, Venerable Yuttadhamma?
Well, it's interesting to me because when I heard that, I immediately thought, well, what about addiction? And it may be that it's not considered a roga per se. Addiction is not the sickness. I mean, it is a sickness, but it's interesting how the Buddha categorizes only the illness that comes from addiction, right? Because addiction can be quite comfortable and pleasant until you don't get what you want, or until you have to go with withdrawal, and that's the real sick feeling, right? And there's an aversion to it. There's a great suffering because of the patika cetasika. Patika is the essence of anger, right? When you have a dosa citta, anger citta, it's only because it's patika sampayutta. It's associated with patika, right?
And now I see the connection to this, like in the Roga Sutta, the discourse on the illness. There, the Buddha, Bhante Kusala actually touched on that sutta, like 3 words the Buddha is using. Mahicchata hoti, like you have a lot of expectations. When you become a person of many expectations, many wishes, so if you cannot fulfill your wishes, your expectations, so you begin to feel kind of annoyed or become miserable. Like you have so many wishes in your mind. You want this, you want that. I want this way, that way. I want my life to be like this. I want my life to be like that. So if you cannot fulfill your wishes, so that means you feel kind of angry towards yourself, or you become miserable. And then through that, asantuti hoti, then you become discontented. Like you're not contented with anything, right? So now that particular part of the Buddha's explanation, like how this mental illness begins, like this is his saying this discourse to a group of monks, and especially he's giving examples, like as a monk, our 4 requisites, Chivara, Pindapata, Senasana, Besajjagla, right? And if you have many wishes for the robes and the food and the lodgings and medicine and all this, then if you cannot get them, if you cannot have all of them, so you become miserable. So that causes,
you feel sick.
You feel sick. No, you feel sick. Now, have you ever met anyone who is saying something like that? Now, I can tell you a story that here's someone. I say it's not something to hide. You can find that story. It was actually featured by CTV National News some years ago. Every year, like the month of January is the mental health awareness month. So there's a Bell company features different people who have recovered from mental struggles. So here's a person, a young man, who actually, if you Google the Buddhist monk who saved the young man's life, CTV National News, that story will come up. So this young man actually fell in love with the with the young girl who was a model, but then she said no. But he had the high expectations. He built his own future with her, but something happened, and so he became kind of suicidal. He went to see the doctors, and the psychologist tried his best to bring hopes, but one day, he had a lot of cuts, okay? And the doctor said, look, you have to go and see this monk So he came here, and he was received by one of he was received by our chief abbot, and then he came to my room. He said, Bante, Saranapala, there's someone who is here to talk to you. We see, a lot of blood on his head, his hands. So you know what? So when he came, I know he was very distorted, and he was crying, he was shivering, and then I kind of, okay, welcome. I brought him to the shrine room. We sat down, listened to his story, and so there, what I realized was his expectation. He had the expectations. His expectations were not met, and there actually I said something very funny. That is, I think in Sri Lanka, there is a saying, Muhude inne ekamalu nere. So that means in the ocean, there is not just only one fish. There are many fish. There are colorful fish. All you have to do is, why do you have to, make your life miserable for just one fish who did not come to you? Actually, that gave him kind of hope. And so after listening to his, I think kindness really matters. I think those who are going through emotional pains, and if you can show them kindness. So on that day, in addition to this, actually, I don't do that normally when during these counseling sessions, but on that day, I felt this extra kindness. I said, this is my tea time. Would you like to join me for a cup of tea? And actually, then he was extremely happy. I took him to the kitchen and made his, tea for him and offered him some cookies. And there we had another friendly conversation. And that's it. Although he was kind of suicidal, right? And that extra kindness, that mindful conversation, deep listening, changed his life. So I think if we can help people, of course, all now today the modern psychologists, neuroscientists would say mental illnesses or mental health issues like the stress or disorders or schizophrenia, and these. But when we talk about this, of course, Buddhism is not. We don't know whether we can find some words for such things. I know, but Mataji, you said there's so much to talk about that.
Yeah, there is a tremendous amount that I had to come up with very simple things here. Very simple. Children, almost adults who are like children. I remember telling a child's story at the temple once and looking at the parents that were listening to the story with the translator and realizing that not just the children were so wow listening to the story, but the parents were listening to the story like that. And I realized there was a whole different approach to working with people here that had to be very simple. And the resources I have, you monks are so well educated with the Buddha. I have to go just from the Majjhima Nikaya and the Samyutta Nikaya that I've studied as deeply as I could to find what I needed. And then over the years, I put together a system of little suttas to use that really help people. The first one is Bhadarakata Sutta, just teaching the person to rebalance. It's an imbalance thing. So when they're very, very frightened and very upset, most everything is coming from the past, I find. And so if we can give them something that can balance them, the story of the Bhadarakata Sutta, just the prose by itself is so simple about the past, the future, and the present time, and playing a game with them to stay and live in the present time as if you are living in this little car that is the present time, and behind you is the past and the future isn't here. And so you don't have, you can let go of the things that happened in the past. Those things, the energy is all used up and the future isn't here. So it's like there's actually a Christian saying about this that was there. The past is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and the present time is called the present because it's a gift. And if you stay in the present and you take the backpack off of the past and you take the front pack off of the future, then you can walk straight and you can be. So this is one of the little stories to rebalance. And then the Nakalaputta Sutta, someone taught me that. And I really love the story that's in that. It's a very small sutta, but the Nakalaputta Sutta is special because the son brought the father to the Buddha after he almost died. He was sick and he almost died. And then he came to the Buddha and he said, my father is a mess. He's an absolute mess. He's terrified of life now because he almost died. And the rebalancing of his father came when the Buddha said one thing to him: when you are sick with the body, the mind can still be working fine. So then what will you do with that? So then you give them a ground point to work from. And then the next thing is playing with anicca, because anicca, although anicca is the bad guy and anicca is always the cause of the suffering. I had a student come to me about a month ago and say, I love anicca. And I said, why do you love anicca? I thought anicca was the bad guy. You know, anicca, the impermanence and upset, always leading to the suffering. And then she said to me, no, anicca is my savior. I said, what are you talking about? She says, because now you teach me about anicca, and all of a sudden I know everything's going to change. So if I wait just a little bit, then it will change and I don't have to be stuck. And I started laughing. We started laughing together because, oh my gosh, then I started using this anicca as everybody should have a little team flag inside on the wall. It says anicca. So many of my students have this little orange flag. It's anicca, but they're not looking at it as an enemy. They're looking at it as something that they understand, and it's going to pass. So this was a big deal for a lot of them. They thought it wasn't going to pass. Then we got to a place, oh, you thought everything was happening to you. And oh, I remember feeling like that when I was collapsing in my 40s. I remember that. It felt like the whole world was on top of me. Yeah? Okay. And then I realized, oh my gosh, the Buddha is telling us that no, everything is coming from us. Oh, I said, that's even better. Now we have a visual. We can give the person a blank piece of paper. So now I gave many of my students here, I get the white piece of paper, or they tell them to go to the art store, get the little white piece of canvas that's already ready to paint on, put it on the wall and leave it white. What for, sister? Because then every day when you get up, you're going to paint the picture that day in your mind and make a picture of your life because you're in charge. And they said, we're in charge. We thought everything was happening to us. Okay, what if everything is not happening to you? I'm not saying it is. You check it out. Everything is not happening to you. Everything is coming from you. Now, if everything is coming from you, then they came back, they said, we feel very strong now. I said, yeah, because you wanted to be in charge, but you didn't know how. And I'm explaining to you this way. You can create the painting every day. It's not having to be happening to you. What if it's happening from you? Then you can say, never mind, that was in the past. I'm not going to behave that way again. I'm going to behave a new way just in this present time. Now you feel lighter, huh? You feel lighter. Now I'm playing games with them, and then we start talking about anatta. And the anatta, what's that? Well, it doesn't have to be all about me and mine. If you start helping someone else outside of where you feel the pressure is happening to you, then what happens? Why don't you try it this week? Going, helping just one friend, all the wonderful things you're saying right now, listening is wonderful, absolutely fantastic. The different things, Ottawa said such wonderful things, wonderful. So you learn to listen, but when you're listening, you are helping yourself because you're not thinking about your stuff. And they came back and said, you know, this was really cool. We smiled and we got other people to smile about everything and laugh a little bit and come out of the funk where you're stuck, out of the mud. And then when I'm helping them, I feel better. And this thing of the older people, as soon as we get them to say something to another older person and then listen to somebody, because I listen to them, they listen to someone else. What I'm doing for you, I'm not fixing anybody. I'm just showing you what the Buddha was saying in all these little places. And then we practice the Brahma Viharas. And we practice the Brahma Viharas because the loving kindness, it makes it so your mind cannot have any thoughts of ill will, and the karuna makes it so you cannot have any thoughts of cruelty. And then the joy, when it comes up, enjoy it while it's there.
Yeah.
It's a nitya, it's going to go.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I think what you said, if people can understand the three marks of existence, anicca, dukkha, anatta, and I think the mental health issues could be solved. But it's not that immediate. It's not that easy. But it takes time to get there, right?
But you can play a game.
Yeah.
Have fun with it. Yeah. And when they're helping others, they're helping the community. When they help the community, they help themselves.
Yeah. So Bhante Kusala, you raised your hand. I'm pretty sure you have something to share.
Yes, Bhante, Venerable Kema just mentioned about Metta, Karuna, and Mudita, and she was about to say Upekha as well, which is about equanimity. I think the end of the Mangala Sutta says, when we are touched by these worldly conditions, your chittang yasana kampati, your mind is not shaken. And that the Buddha says is one of the highest blessings. So this equanimity, I think Venerable Kema just revealed the path. And a couple of other things that I'm going to mention here is, Bhante Sarnapala just mentioned about people cutting themselves, and you had that visitor that you helped. And I was talking to one of my friends earlier about why people really cut themselves. And apparently one of the reasons why they do that is because, they want to feel better, at least physically. They just want to feel something, some recovery, that they are in this kind of a dark spot that they can't feel better mentally, so that they cut themselves so that they can feel that they are recovering. So it is such a painful situation. I think I hear Bhante Sarnapala oftentimes mention to me, and I take it always as a great kind of great kind of instruction for me also, as I approach to people, that we invite people to come to the middle ground first before we even help them. That we first tell them that just tell us the story. In that they find some relief just telling the story to us, and then we take it from there. I think since other venerables have to speak, I will stop here, and our time is also coming closest to the end.
Yeah, we have just 2 more minutes. Thank you, Bhante Kusala. Bhante Vijnanand, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I am mindful about the time, so just want to tell that this Buddha's mental, advice for mental health is not only for those who are sick, but everyone who actually still in good health in average sense. So I just want to emphasize the fact that don't wait for these moments like distress, stress, and all kinds of mental health. So Buddha talks about the being able to take precautions to stop those moments that you are going to have. So Buddha talk about those tips, and every other important things just for average people to practice so that they are get ready for the mental health. So we can do very little when you have mental problems. So that Buddha's most important emphasis is that you have to work out with the Dhamma well before the mental health. So that if somebody asks from me, Bante, what can I do to overcome the opportunities of mental illness? I would definitely say that start with Satipatthana with simple tips. So if you friends meet a monk, just talk about Satipatthana, ask questions about Satipatthana, how to understand yourself and so forth. And we all need to understand that these things comes to us, right? Without problems, there are no solutions at all. Bante Kusala, can you turn your video off, because there's one important message from your profile picture. It's no mud. What is that? No
mud, no lotus.
No mud, no lotus. See,
Yeah.
that brings a lot for us, right? So just expect those situations. So work out on Satipatthana or any other mental procedures that the Buddha talks about, so that you can overcome mental illnesses. That's what I wanted to tell you, Bante, at last.
Thank you. Bante Kusala, you can turn on your video now. Yeah, it was a great saying. And I think this is just for our understanding. I know the mental health issues could be coming from maybe doing or something or following something extremely. So if it is my belief, my understanding, if we can follow the first advice given by the Buddha in his first sermon to the first group of monks, is that monks avoid these two extremes. These two extremes are unprofitable, miserable, lead to disaster. So monks follow the middle path, middle ground. And I think if we really want to enjoy the good health, good mental health, the path to good mental health is the middle way. That middle way is the nothing but the Noble Eightfold Path. So we can have more discussion on this, more to come. And so today, I'm very grateful to all the venerable monks and nuns who actually share great wisdom. I would like to read out some comments made by our friends in the YouTube. This one, Virginia Wood, she said, I teach college psychology, including Buddhist psychology, and would love that list of suttas. What a resource. Of course.
Oh, I can do that.
Yeah.
I did talk about that. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Okay,
can I
good.
send it to you?
Yeah. And then Richard Johnson said, everyone there is everyone there is an expert. Just listening. Maybe this is Richard is maybe referring to all the monks and nuns. You all are experts. You guys have little dust. So the monks have little dust. So if you have little dust, no psychological issues. The word is a dust storm. Noble friends is all of the holy life. If they can start with simple virtue. And then someone is Mahendra De Silva is saying there are various mindfulness-based programs like MBSR, MBCT, etc. by Western psychologists to help mentally sick, and these programs provide a great relief who has less confidence on spirituality. Okay. So Ranjit Vijay Singh is saying, need to gain the confidence of the person, need to lead an ethical life. So you can avoid that psychological issues. Little things with big results. Impermanence is very important. Then Pink Frogs is saying, my saying, there are gifts and there are surprises. Life is a gift full of surprises. And Richard John is saying, anyone that teaches the doctrine of letting go is a monk. Letting go is the solution. This reminds me of Ajahn saying, if you let go a little, you will have little peace. If you let go a lot, you will have a lot of peace. If you let go completely, then your struggle with the world will come to an end. So thank you all for sharing your comments, your words, encouraging words, and these are very interesting. So I'm very grateful to all of you, all the venerable monks and nuns, for sharing your great wisdom today. So let us finish today's program by reciting the Ova the Patimokkha. So for that, I would like to invite Bhante Sunita from Ottawa, Canada, to because he has a no, all the venerable monks could do this, but he has a beautiful voice. Bhante Sunita.
Thank you very much, Bhante Samapada. And my wishes for all the great venerable monks and nuns for having a long, healthy life, helping oneself and helping others, and stay safe and healthy. Let me recite the Hovada Patimokkha. Sabba papassa akaranang kusalassa upasampada sacitta pariyodapanang Nitang Buddhana Sasanang Khanti Paramang Tapo Titikha Nibbanang Paramang Vadanti Buddha Nahi pabbajito parupaghati samano hoti parang vihetayang tu anupavado anupaghatu patimokhecha sangvaru Matang yuta ce battasming pantang ce sayanasanang adhicitte ce ayugo itang buddhana sasanang sadhu sadhu.
Sadhu, sadhu. It was beautifully recited. Thank you so much, Bhante Sunita, for this beautiful recitation. And once again, my gratitude and thanks and blessings to all venerable monks and nuns who joined us today's bi-weekly sutra discussion. And we are going to meet again in 2 weeks' time. And there is a great interest in this. But if we continue on the same topic, it will be boring. So we might have a new topic, but if we can invite an expert on this, maybe a doctor, to have an open discussion with all the venerable monks. And if you know anyone, please let us know. We would love to have him or her. So until then, all of you stay well and happy, and good night from Canada. Thank you.